You've found your way to the Tongue of the Serpent, a Southern-Gothic audio chronicle from the haunted heart of New Orleans, where grief grows like ivy and every whispered secret has teeth. Some of you have been here before. You remember the crew of the Morning Star, the candlelight, the bargains, the echoes that never fade. For the rest of you, consider this your first descent. Take a breath. Keep one hand on the wall. The air smells of earth and memory tonight. Something old is stirring beneath the city. This is Season 2, Episode 1, The Rootheart Awakens. The Murmur of Roots. There are places where the world grows thin, where the roots of things whisper secrets to the bones of the earth. New Orleans had always been one of those places, a city balanced on the trembling thread between memory and dream. It knows how to keep its secrets. Tonight, though, the city feels restless, as if something old and half-forgotten had woken up and found itself tangled in its own roots. The Garden District roses are blooming out of season, their petals bruised and heavy with dew, while vines creep up the wrought iron fences like greedy, grasping fingers. The cobblestones sweat with moss, and the shadows spill thick and syrupy, pooling in places they shouldn't be. In Jackson Square, the statues look older, faces weathered, eyes hollowed out as if even stone is weary of keeping vigil. Evelyn moves through the city like a sleepwalker, her footsteps guided by something older than instinct. Her fingers trail along crumbling brick walls, her mind adrift on the murmur of voices seeping up through the cracks. They hum through her bones, a low, insistent pulse that matches the thrum of her own heart. She's spent centuries shaking off the weight of memory, but tonight it coils around her ankles like stubborn weeds. A twisted root bursts through the sidewalk at her feet, pale and hungry, splitting the concrete like a ribcage pried open. Evelyn pauses, staring down at it, and she can't quite tell whether it's the city breathing or something buried deeper. A heart, maybe, slumbering far beneath, just now beginning to wake. She doesn't know why she's drawn here, only that she can't ignore the pull. Her skin prickles with a sense of déjà vu, but it's muddied by sorrow, a sorrow so old it tastes like dust. Somewhere behind her, a lamppost flickers and dies, and the shadows yawn wider, stretching themselves awake. Evelyn doesn't notice the man watching her from the corner, his coat flapping like the wings of a crow. He sees the way her head tilts, how her hands twitch as if fighting the urge to dig into the earth with bare fingers. He doesn't move closer, doesn't dare disturb the strange, fragile communion between woman and root. Beneath the city, something shifts, uncoils, and stretches ancient limbs. Evelyn shivers, unsure if it's the night air or the whisper of roots, reminding her that some things buried are never truly dead. Signs of Awakening. Lucien Devereaux hated plants. They were unruly, unpredictable things. Roots creeping through mortar, leaves straining toward any scrap of light, vines wrapping tight enough to choke the life from wood and stone alike. They didn't belong in his shop, certainly not in the crew of the Morning Star, where dust and shadows held dominion, and the only things that grew did so in jars filled with brine and regret. But today, there they were, Tiny, delicate shoots poking through the gaps in the warped floorboards, their pale tendrils stretching and unfurling like newborn fingers. He frowned down at them, then scraped his boot across the boards. The sprouts yielded, crushed to pulp, but the scent of fresh, raw earth lingered in the air, heady and uncomfortably vital. Lucian wiped his hands on a rag and glanced at the object sitting on the counter, an antique music box, its brass mechanisms corroded with age and something less tangible. It had been playing by itself all morning, a lilting, discordant waltz that tugged at memories he didn't care to revisit. He'd been trying to silence it with salt and iron shavings when the plants had appeared, and now the box fell abruptly silent, its lid snapping shut like the beak of some spiteful bird. Something was wrong, more wrong than usual, which in New Orleans was saying something. Lucian rifled through a stack of crumbling ledgers and brittle parchment, searching for anything that felt familiar. His fingers found a faded journal bound in cracked leather, a record of strange occurrences from decades past. Flipping through the pages, his eyes caught on a single phrase. The root heart stirs. The words sank like stones in his stomach. He'd read about it once, an ancient presence buried deep beneath the city, half myth, half warning. The root heart was a sentient force, older than the streets above, older than memory. When it woke, things changed. The ground split. Shadows thickened. Nature itself warped and bled into the cityscape. Lucian swallowed hard and stared down at the journal, his mind spinning. There was no reason for it to stir now. No war, no cataclysm, nothing to rouse something so ancient and bitter. Unless his thoughts drifted unbidden to Evelyn, the way she'd seemed even more distant lately, her eyes clouded with some ancient grief. But there was no sense to it, nothing to connect her to the restless roots threading through his floorboards, but the thought stuck with him like a splinter, sharp and persistent. He closed the journal with a snap, shoving it back onto the shelf. The air in the shop felt heavier now, and he couldn't shake the feeling that someone had set all this in motion. He just didn't know who or why, or what the root heart wanted now that it was stirring from its slumber. Drawn to the pulse, Evelyn stood motionless in the courtyard, her eyes wide and unseeing, as if tethered to something just out of sight. Roots had shattered the cobblestones beneath her feet, winding up through the gaps like skeletal fingers clawing their way to freedom. The air around her throbbed with an eerie hum, as though the city itself were singing, low and mournful, the melody of something ancient fighting its way back into the world. Lucian spotted her from the edge of the alley, his instincts screaming caution. Evelyn's face was serene, almost peaceful, but the quiet horror of the roots coiling at her ankles made his skin crawl. He hesitated, just long enough to wonder if he should intervene or let whatever force had taken her run its course. But then he saw her hand tremble, and something in him snapped.
Evelyn!
He called, his voice sharp and unyielding. She didn't react, her body swaying slightly to the pulse beneath the earth. Lucian swore under his breath and strode forward, grasping her shoulder firmly.
Evelyn, snap out of it.
Her eyes fluttered, and she seemed to wake, confusion flickering across her features before recognition set in. Lucian? He pulled his hand away, uneasy at the way her skin seemed colder than usual.
What are you doing out here?
Her gaze dropped to the roots, and a shiver passed through her. I don't know, she whispered, her voice fragile and uncertain. Something's calling me. I didn't even realize I'd left the shop. Lucien folded his arms, trying to mask his discomfort with impatience.
This isn't the first place I've seen the ground breaking apart. You know something about this, don't you?
Evelyn hesitated, her mouth opening and closing like a puppet struggling to remember its lines. It's what I warned you about, she finally said. It's old. Older than the city. As old as me. It feels like a memory. Like something I lost long ago. He arched an eyebrow, incredulous.
You're not making sense.
She looked at him, eyes haunted. I know. I can't explain it. It's like something inside me is unraveling. I feel it pulling at me, like it's waking up, and I can't stop it. Lucien didn't have an answer. He wasn't sure there was one, but the fear in her voice, the way her hands shook when she touched the roots, made his gut twist. Whatever was stirring, it had reached into Evelyn's soul, and that terrified him more than he cared to admit. Ghosts of memory. They sat on the crumbling stone bench, the faint rustle of leaves the only sound between them. Evelyn kept her hands clasped in her lap, eyes fixed on the mangled roots creeping through the cobblestones. Lucien leaned against the archway, unsure whether he should speak or let her sit in silence. When I was younger, before everything, I used to feel like this sometimes, Evelyn said at last. Her voice was low, almost distant, like she was telling a story she barely remembered. Like something was clawing at my heart, begging me to remember it. I thought it was Lilith, maybe, or just grief. I could never tell. Lucien shifted uncomfortably, the mention of Lilith like a stone in his chest.
You think it's her?
He asked, his tone softer than he intended. Evelyn shook her head. No, it's something different, deeper, like roots stretching through time. Something primal. Something about the love I lost long ago. Lost it before I understood its value. He frowned.
You've lived a long time, Evelyn. Loss comes with the territory.
Her laugh was bitter and brittle. Loss is one thing. This feels like I'm being pulled apart, like something's dragging pieces of me back to the dirt. Lucien couldn't quite meet her gaze.
You're not the type to get swept away by old ghosts.
She looked at him, eyes glassy with unshed tears. What if I am this time? He didn't know how to answer, so he just stayed there, keeping silent watch while shadows thickened and the pulse of roots whispered secrets to the city beneath their feet. A watchful eye. Renard Blackwood lingered in the shadows, pressed against the cracked wall of a neighboring courtyard. His sharp eyes tracked every movement, every trembling breath, as Evelyn pulled herself from her trance. Lucien steadying her with a firm hand on her shoulder. He couldn't hear the words, but he didn't need to. The way Evelyn's face crumpled was something like grief. The way Lucien's jaw set with barely restrained frustration. It told him enough. Renard's instincts thrummed with something dangerously close to excitement. He'd been following the tendrils of chaos for days now, roots breaking through stone, vines crawling up the sides of buildings where they didn't belong, like some ancient hunger reaching out for the living. He hadn't expected to find Evelyn at the heart of it, but now that he had, It made a peculiar sort of sense. Renard Blackwood traced the swell of roots with his gloved fingers, brushing against leaves that pulsed with unnatural life. There was power here, old and waiting, and it called to him like a whisper at the edge of thought. Evelyn had always been enigmatic, but this was something else, something primal. He'd always sensed a darkness in her, buried under centuries of regret and longing. But now that darkness seemed to be bleeding out, tainting the very ground beneath her feet. If Evelyn was the key to awakening whatever slept beneath New Orleans, Renard needed to know. Power was a currency he couldn't afford to ignore, and if she could summon the Rootheart, could bend it to her will, perhaps he could do the same. Silently he slipped away, determined to follow her movements and unravel the secret of the pulse that stirred beneath the city. He had no intention of being caught unaware when the earth finally cracked open and spilled its secrets to the world. The heart beat beneath. Back at the crew of the Morning Star, the air was thick with dust and the faint scent of old wood. Lucian pushed open the creaking door, and Evelyn followed, hesitant, like she wasn't sure her own feet would obey. The shop was dim, sunlight filtering through the high windows, casting fractured on the warm floorboards. Lucian moved to his desk, spreading out the brittle, yellowed pages he'd unearthed from the archives. Maps of old New Orleans, accounts of strange phenomena, faded sketches of roots wrapped around gravestones and curling through cobblestones. Evelyn lingered near the door, reluctant to move closer. He didn't look up.
Found something,
he muttered. She remained silent, but he could feel her presence, the tension radiating from her like a storm about to break. He gestured to a particularly faded page.
Rootheart, an ancient power tied to the very bones of the city. Some kind of sentient force under the ground, sleeping until, well, something wakes it up. There are theories, of course. Catastrophe, ritual, blood. Seems it doesn't rise unless it's needed. Or summoned.
Evelyn's breath caught, just barely, but he heard it. Summoned? Lucian nodded.
Or maybe coaxed, drawn out by grief, loss, or some other primal ache. It doesn't wake gently. The stories talk about the roots ripping through the city, tearing it apart. Some accounts say it finds a host, a tether, to bind itself to the world above.
She looked pale, lips pressed into a thin line. This is all about me. He hesitated.
I don't know. Maybe. Whatever is waking it up, it's connected to you. You can feel it, can't you?
Evelyn lowered her head, her hair falling in loose strands around her face. I hear it in my dreams, she whispered. Voices calling me to the earth, telling me to let go, to return to the roots and let them wrap around me, bury me. It feels safe, like giving in would finally mean feeling at peace. Lucian stiffened.
That's not peace, Evelyn. That's surrender.
She laughed, bitter, jagged. What if I'm too tired to fight anymore? He crossed the room, his hand brushing hers, and for once, he didn't pull back.
You fought too long to be taken now. Whatever this is, we'll figure it out. But don't let it swallow you whole.
Evelyn didn't answer, but the haunted look in her eyes told him it might already be too late. And as the floor beneath them gave a subtle shiver, he knew they were running out of time. A convergence of shadows. As night fell, Renard Blackwood found her in the alley behind the crew of the Morning Star, where shadows clung like cobwebs and the air hung thick with the scent of old earth. Evelyn stood near the cracked brick wall, her gaze distant, as if seeing through time itself. He softened his steps, letting his presence be known just enough to avoid startling her.
Couldn't sleep either?
He asked, his tone low and smooth as silk. Evelyn didn't turn, but he saw the way her shoulders tensed. What do you want, Renard? He leaned against the wall a few feet away, his posture casual, but his eyes sharp.
Word spreading about the roots breaking through. Unsettling things, you know. People are whispering about curses, ancient things waking up.
Her jaw clenched. People always whisper. It's what they do.
True enough.
He offered a sympathetic smile that didn't quite reach his eyes.
But I can't help but notice it always seems to circle back to you. You've been wandering through places no one dares to go, staring at things like they're calling you. I just want to make sure you're all right.
She finally turned, and there was fire in her eyes, subdued but unmistakable. Since when do you care about my well-being? Renard shrugged, playing at innocence.
Hey, I'm a curious soul, and you've always been fascinating.
Before Evelyn could answer, Lucian's voice sliced through the dark like a knife.
Is there a reason you're bothering her?
Renard barely glanced his way, lips curling into a lazy smirk.
Just looking out for a friend.
Lucian moved closer, his presence cold and solid as a tombstone.
Funny, I don't remember her needing your protection. Stay out of this, Renard. You don't know what you're messing with.
Renard merely raised an eyebrow, unruffled.
You don't own the city, Lucian, or her.
Lucian's eyes hardened, but he didn't rise to the bait. Instead, he placed a gentle hand on Evelyn's arm and steered her back inside. Renard remained behind, thoughtful, his smile shifting from amused to calculating. Whatever was waking up beneath the city, it was powerful enough to change everything, and Renard Blackwood was nothing if not ambitious. Beneath the earth. That night, the city groaned as if shaking off a century's worth of sleep. Lucian shot upright in his bed, heart pounding as the very walls seemed to pulse with life. He didn't need to look out the window to know. Roots were breaking through the cobblestones, forming sprawling, sinuous patterns that looked less like random growth and more like symbols. Ancient, winding sigils carved into the earth itself. Evelyn was already at the door, her face ashen, eyes wide and unseeing. Lucian moved to her side, gripping her shoulder firmly. "It's happening," she whispered.
No kidding.
He muttered, shrugging into his coat.
We need to find the source. Whatever's calling to you, it's not done yet.
She hesitated. It wants me. It's pulling me underground. Lucian set his jaw, refusing to acknowledge the shiver of dread skittering down his spine.
Then we're going underground. But I'm not letting it take you.
Evelyn's gaze softened for a moment, something fragile and grateful flickering there, but it vanished just as quickly. They didn't speak as they left the shop and stepped into the fractured streets, roots clawing skyward like skeletal fingers. Somewhere in the distance, they could hear people shouting, frantic voices blending into the night. Whatever slumbering heart lay beneath the city, it was no longer content to rest. And Lucian knew that if they didn't reach it soon, the city itself might become its sacrifice. The Rootheart Awakens. The space unfurled like a memory beneath memory, a liminal space, neither above nor below, but somewhere between. Stone and shadow wove together into vast, cathedral-like arches, as if the bones of the quarter remembered an older dream. At the center, where unseen threads of power converged, a great knot of roots pulsed with slow, ancient rhythm. The root heart. It beat like something alive and dreaming, filling the air with the scent of soil after rain and a resonant hum that echoed in Evelyn's ribs, as though the place itself recognized her. She approached slowly, as if entranced, her fingers trembling at her sides. The roots writhed, responding to her presence, and a voice, a deep feminine echo, whispered through the cavern, "Beloved." Evelyn froze, eyes wide and wet with something that wasn't quite fear. Memories crashed through her mind, sunlit gardens, laughter, warmth, a choice that had shattered the world and left her wandering alone for centuries. Lilith's voice, rich and warm, calling her name as the sun bled into twilight. Return to the roots, to me. Evelyn's knees gave out, and she fell to the earth, palms flat against the living roots, feeling the pulse of ancient sorrow. Lucian stepped forward, a fierce, unyielding presence, voice cutting through the thrall.
She doesn't belong to you.
The root heart's pulse grew faster, agitated, and Evelyn choked back a sob, fighting the longing that clawed at her soul. Lucian. He didn't take his eyes off the pulsing knot.
Whatever you think you are, whatever claim you think you have on her, you're wrong. She's lived 1,000 times since then. She's not yours to take.
The root heart seemed to hesitate, the hum growing softer, almost like a questioning murmur. Evelyn gritted her teeth, feeling the pain of memory slip away, leaving only the raw ache of survival. Lucian's voice softened, but remained unbreakable.
She doesn't need your peace. She doesn't need to be swallowed by grief. She's stronger than that.
The tension broke, and the roots relaxed, retreating into the ground like tired serpents. Evelyn leaned against Lucian, breath hitching, and for the first time in centuries, the ache in her chest seemed to ease. Lucian wrapped an arm around her, grounding her in the present, and together they stood, listening to the quiet as the root heart settled back into slumber, no longer desperate to claim what wasn't truly its own. A new balance. The root heart's pulse faded, withdrawing like the tide, roots loosening their grip on the ancient stones. Silence settled, deep and profound, as if the earth itself had let out a long, weary sigh. Evelyn remained still, hands trembling faintly at her sides, and Lucian didn't move, afraid that the slightest touch might shatter her fragile calm. She didn't look at him, didn't dare, not when her mind was still reeling from memories that felt more like open wounds than recollections. The echoes of ancient heartbreak hummed through her veins, and Lucian could feel it too. like a bruise they both shared, tender and aching. He wanted to say something, to make some clever remark, to lighten the weight pressing down on them. But words felt irrelevant, intrusive, so he stayed silent, his presence a quiet declaration that she wasn't alone, not anymore. The Rootheart had taken what it could, but Evelyn remained standing, unbroken, and that was victory enough. In the shadows at the chamber's entrance, Renard Blackwood lingered, his silhouette swallowed by the gloom. His eyes gleamed with a predatory curiosity, lips curved into a knowing smile. He'd seen enough to understand that power was moving through the city, old power, rooted in history and heartbreak, and he couldn't help but wonder how he might bend it to his will. But Lucien and Evelyn didn't see him. They climbed the winding passage back toward the surface, leaving behind the sleeping Rootheart and the secrets it guarded. Renard remained behind, thoughtful and quiet, his mind spinning threads of ambition and desire. The quiet after. Back at the crew of the Morning Star, the shop seemed unchanged, its shadows undisturbed by the chaos brewing beneath the city. Lucien moved behind the counter and poured 2 fingers of bourbon into mismatched glasses, passing one to Evelyn without a word. She took it gratefully, her hands still unsteady. They sat in the faded armchairs, refugees from a dozen forgotten parlors, drinking in silence. The amber liquid burned its way down, warm and sharp, and Lucien found his thoughts tangling into knots. He knew better than to ask her about what had stirred beneath the earth, what old pain had cracked open like a fault line. If Evelyn wanted to speak of it, she would. Until then, he would remain a steady, silent fixture, waiting for her to find her footing again. But there was something gnawing at him, a sense this wasn't over. The Rootheart hadn't woken on a whim. It had been called, pulled from its slumber by something deeper than memory. He glanced at Evelyn, noting the way her fingers traced patterns on the rim of her glass, lost in thought. Did she know? Did she feel it too? That sense of something left unresolved. As dawn stretched pale fingers through the dusty windows, Lucien noticed a small bloom pushing up between the warped floorboards, a single white flower, fragile and perfect. Its petals glowed faintly, pulsing in time with the heartbeat of the earth far below. He didn't touch it, just stared, resigned to the knowledge that the Rootheart was not finished with them. Somewhere deep in his bones, Lucien understood that nothing buried stays buried forever, and whatever was waking beneath New Orleans would demand more than their silence. The city sleeps again, but only for now. The Rootheart dreams beneath the cobblestones, and somewhere in the French Quarter, a single flower still beats in time with its pulse. You've been listening to Tongue of the Serpent, stories from a world where the veil is thin, the dead keep their promises, and love is just another form of haunting. If you've enjoyed this descent, share it, summon a friend, and leave a light burning in the window for the next wanderer. Until the next heartbeat beneath New Orleans, keep listening. The serpent always speaks.